The Six-Day War in 1967 was a short but significant conflict in which Israel, feeling threatened by its Arab neighbors, launched a preemptive strike. Israel swiftly defeated Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, capturing the Sinai Peninsula and Gaza Strip from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. This victory dramatically altered the region's political dynamics and increased Israel's territorial holdings. After the Six-Day War, Israel began establishing settlements in the territories it had captured, particularly in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. These settlements were seen as a major impediment to peace negotiations with Palestinians, as they violated international law and complicated the possibility of a two-state solution. The Yom Kippur War of 1973, also known as the October War, was a surprise attack by Egypt and Syria on Israel during the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. Israel initially faced challenges but ultimately repelled the attacks and pushed into Egypt and Syria. The conflict highlighted the need for peace negotiations and ultimately led to the Camp David Accords. The Camp David Accords in 1978 were a milestone in Middle East diplomacy, facilitated by U.S. President Jimmy Carter. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin negotiated peace, leading to Egypt becoming the first Arab nation to officially recognize Israel and the signing of a peace treaty in 1978. Then in 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon to counter the perceived threat from the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, based there, and in response to a spate of attacks launched from Lebanon. The invasion resulted in a protracted and controversial military occupation, lasting until 2000, with significant loss of life and damage to Lebanon. The First Intifada in 1987 was a Palestinian uprising against Israeli rule in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem. Characterized by mass protests, civil disobedience, and acts of violence, it significantly influenced public opinion and international pressure for peace. The Oslo Accords of 1993 were a breakthrough in Israeli-Palestinian relations, providing a framework for negotiations and the establishment of the Palestinian Authority, PA. The accords divided the West Bank into three areas: Areas A, B, and C, with varying degrees of Palestinian control. In November 1995, Yitzhak Rabin, a Nobel Peace Laureate, was assassinated by a right-wing Jewish extremist opposed to the Oslo Accords. His death deeply impacted the peace process and left a lasting scar on Israeli society. The Second Intifada began after the collapse of the Camp David summit in 2000. Palestinians engaged in violent protests and suicide bombings, resulting in a harsh Israeli military response and a significant loss of life on both sides. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew from the Gaza Strip, dismantling settlements and uprooting thousands of settlers. However, Israel maintained control over Gaza's borders, airspace, and coastline, imposing a blockade that severely limited the movement of people and goods. In 2007, Hamas, an Islamist terrorist group, took control of the Gaza Strip after fierce fighting with the controlling militant group, Fatah, leading to a political and territorial divide between Gaza and the West Bank. Israel launched a military operation in Gaza to halt rocket attacks by Hamas and weaken its military capabilities. The conflict resulted in significant casualties and damage to infrastructure in Gaza. Another military operation in Gaza was initiated by Israel to stop Hamas rocket fire and destroy tunnels used by militants. The conflict resulted in substantial loss of life and infrastructure damage. In 2018, the United States officially recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and announced plans to move its embassy there from Tel Aviv. The decision sparked protests and condemnation from various countries and organizations. The Abraham Accords were agreements made in 2020, between Israel and several Arab states, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco, to normalize diplomatic and economic relations, a significant shift in regional dynamics. In 2020, Israel considered annexing parts of the West Bank, a move met with international opposition and concern as it would have fundamentally altered the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In May 2021, tensions escalated into a full-scale conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, resulting in intense fighting, loss of life, and significant destruction in both Gaza and Israel. In June 2021, Naftali Bennett became Prime Minister, succeeding Benjamin Netanyahu, following a diverse coalition agreement, marking a shift in Israeli political leadership. Israel's continued expansion of settlements in the occupied territories remains a contentious issue, undermining peace efforts and leading to disputes with Palestinians and the international community. After the 2022 election, Benjamin Netanyahu was sworn in as prime minister again as the leader of a hardline coalition. He officially started his sixth term on the 29th of December 2022. On the 7th of October 2023, Hamas launched a massive attack on Israel, firing thousands of rockets into Israel, and massacring hundreds at a festival near the border with Gaza. This was the largest terror attack Israel had ever faced and was met with a brutal retaliatory response. Israel responded, declaring a war, with rocket and airstrikes of its own, pulverizing Gaza night and day since the Hamas attack. Many civilians are killed on both sides and the violence continues. Israel faces ongoing challenges, including security concerns, efforts to revive peace negotiations, and navigating its relationships with neighboring countries, particularly amidst shifting alliances and changing dynamics in the Middle East. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains a central issue in the region, and achieving a lasting resolution remains a priority.